Right, so picture this. You're the Chancellor of the Exchequer, you've just delivered what many are calling a catastrophic budget, and now you can't even pop down to your local for a pint because the landlord has literally banned you from the premises. Not because you caused a scene on karaoke night, not because you tried to pay in coins you found down the back of the Treasury sofa, but because your policies are allegedly destroying the very industry you're trying to drink in. Welcome to the absolutely wild world of Rachel Reeves, where even your local pub has had enough of your economic decisions. I'm your host here at UK Political Insight, and today we're diving into the story that's got everyone talking, from Westminster to, well, every pub in Britain, apparently. Rachel Reeves has been torn to absolute shreds on GB News after being banned from her local boozer, and honestly, the drama is so thick you could cut it with a budget calculator. So grab your beverage of choice, preferably not an Aperol Spritz because that's become politically loaded now, and let's get into this absolute mess. Now, for those who haven't been following the soap opera that is British politics lately, Rachel Reeves is Labour's Chancellor of the Exchequer. She's the person responsible for the nation's finances, the one who stands up in Parliament with that red box and tells us all how our money's being spent. And recently she delivered a budget that went down about as well as a lead balloon at a children's party. But here's where it gets properly interesting. Martin Knowles, the landlord of the Marsh Inn in Pudsey, has decided that Rachel Reeves, and indeed all Labour MPs, are no longer welcome in his establishment. Not just her, mind you, the entire Labour parliamentary party. That's over 400 MPs who can't get a pint at this particular pub. It's like the world's most specific and politically motivated no-fly list, except it's a no-pint list. The reason? Well, apparently landlords across the nation are staring down the barrel of a massive surge in business rates following Reeves' budget last month. Business rates, for the uninitiated, are basically a tax on commercial properties, and they're about as popular with business owners as a wasp at a picnic. The hospitality sector has been absolutely hammered by this, and Mr. Knowles has decided to make his feelings known in the most British way possible, by banning politicians from his pub. It's not quite storming the Bastille, but it's definitely a statement. So, naturally, this story made its way onto GB News, because where else would a story about a Chancellor being banned from a pub end up? This is the kind of content that channel was practically invented for. Enter Camilla Comeny, hosting Sunday Morning Show, and her guest, Deputy Conservative Chairman Matt Vickers. Now, Matt Vickers is not what you'd call a Rachel Reeves fan at the best of times, being from the opposing party and all, but even by political standards, he absolutely laid into her during this segment. We're talking full demolition job, no holds barred, the verbal equivalent of a wrecking ball. Vickers kicked things off by addressing the elephant in the room, or rather the Chancellor not allowed in the pub. He acknowledged that sometimes banning people because of their politics can be a bit naff, a bit tacky, not exactly the done thing. But then, and this is where he really wound up for the pitch, he pivoted to what Reeves is allegedly doing to the hospitality trade in this country. According to Vickers, 111,000 people have lost their jobs since this government came to power. 111,000. That's not a small number. That's roughly the population of Cambridge. That's an entire city's worth of people who found themselves unemployed. And Vickers is pointing the finger directly at Labour's policies, specifically what he calls the jobs tax. Now, let's unpack this jobs tax business, because it's central to the entire debate. What Vickers is referring to is the increase in employer national insurance contributions that was announced in Reeves' budget. For those keeping score at home, employer national insurance is essentially a tax that businesses pay on their employees' wages. It's been a thing for decades, but the Labour government has decided to increase it, which means businesses now have to pay more for each employee they have on the books. The logic from the government's perspective is that this raises revenue for public services. The logic from business owners' perspective is that this makes hiring people more expensive, which in an industry already operating on razor-thin margins like hospitality could be absolutely catastrophic. The hospitality sector has been through the ringer over the past few years. Brexit disrupted their labour supply, COVID shut them down entirely for months, energy prices have gone through the roof, inflation has squeezed both their costs and their customers' spending power, and now they're facing higher business rates and increased employer contributions. It's like watching someone try to swim while people keep throwing anvils at them. So when Vickers says that Reeves has come back for more, he's tapping into genuine fury from business owners who feel like they're being taxed into oblivion. But here's where the segment got really juicy. Camilla Tominey, clearly enjoying herself at this point, asked Vickers directly whether he was happy for the Chancellor to be told there's no room at the Marsh Inn in Pudsey for her to have an Aperol Spritz. Now, the specificity of mentioning an Aperol Spritz is absolutely brilliant journalism because it's such a perfect detail. It's not a pint, it's not a glass of wine, it's an Aperol Spritz, which feels somehow more middle class and therefore funnier in this context. It's the kind of drink choice that says, I've been on holiday to Italy and have opinions about bitter orange liqueurs. Vickers didn't back down. He doubled down, saying that what Reeves is doing to the hospitality business is appalling. That's a strong word, appalling. Not disappointing, not unfortunate, appalling. He then went after Labour backbench MPs, questioning how they could possibly walk through the lobby and vote for these measures. His suggestion was that they should get themselves down to the pub and see the people who work day and night trying to keep these businesses afloat. It's a populist argument, certainly, but it's also tapping into something real. There's a disconnect between the policy decisions made in Westminster and the actual lived experience of people running small businesses across the country. Now, Camilla did push back on one point, and this is important for balance, even though we're having fun here. She challenged Vickers on Labour's £500 wage hike, referring to the increase in the national living wage that the government has implemented. This is Labour's big counter-argument to accusations they're hurting workers. They can point to the fact that they've increased the minimum wage significantly, which means the lowest paid workers are getting more money in their pockets. That's a good thing, surely. Vickers had a response ready, and it's the crux of the Conservative critique of Labour's economic approach. He said, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, that having a pay rise and a living wage is great, but if you haven't got a job, it's not much use to you. It's a pithy line, and it cuts to the heart of the Conservative argument. Their position is that Labour's policies, particularly the increased costs on employers, will lead to job losses that outweigh any benefit from higher wages for those who remain employed. It's the classic trade-off in economic policy: higher wages versus employment levels. Pay people more and businesses might hire fewer people, so the theory goes. So what does the Treasury have to say about all this? Well, interestingly, when approached about the specific incident of Reeves being banned from the pub, they declined to comment. That's political speak for, we're not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Can you imagine being the Treasury spokesperson who has to field that call? Hello, yes, we'd like a comment on the Chancellor being banned from her local pub. Yeah, we're going to pass on that one, thanks. However, a department spokesperson did provide a statement about their support for the hospitality sector more broadly. They pointed to a £4.3 billion support package from the budget designed to help pubs, restaurants and cafes. They mentioned efforts to ease licensing so more venues can offer pavement drinks and put on one-off events. They highlighted that they're maintaining the cut to alcohol duty on draft pints, and they noted that corporation tax is being capped. So from the Treasury's perspective, they're actually doing loads to help the hospitality sector. Heroes, basically, or at least that's what they'd like us to believe. But here's the thing about that £4.3 billion support package. It needs to be weighed against the increased costs that businesses are facing from other policy decisions. It's a bit like someone punching you in the face and then handing you an ice pack. Yes, the ice pack is helpful, but you're still wondering why you got punched in the first place. Business owners in the hospitality sector are looking at their spreadsheets, calculating the impact of increased business rates and higher employer national insurance contributions, and for many of them, the sums just aren't adding up favourably even with the support measures in place. The point about maintaining the cut to alcohol duty on draft pints is particularly interesting because it shows the government understands the sector is under pressure. Alcohol duty is a tax on alcoholic drinks, and draft beer had a lower rate to help pubs compete with supermarkets. The fact that Labour is maintaining this cut suggests they recognise the importance of supporting pubs specifically, but critics would argue that it's not nearly enough to offset the other cost increases businesses are facing. It's like reducing someone's rent by 50 quid a month while simultaneously increasing their council tax by £200. Net result, they're still worse off. Let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture here, because this isn't just about one Chancellor and one pub. This is about the relationship between government policy and the real economy, between Westminster bubble thinking and the actual impact on people's livelihoods. The hospitality sector employs millions of people in this country. It's where many young people get their first jobs. It's a sector that's absolutely vital to our high streets and